You know, in the whole, often really heated debate about vaccines, there's one thing I think we can all agree on. We just need more good, solid data. So today, we're diving into this absolutely groundbreaking study out of Kenya that gives us exactly that. And honestly, it might just change how you think about vaccine safety research for good. Okay, so let's just stop for a second and ask a really basic question. When you hear about vaccine safety, where does that info actually come from? I mean, who are we studying? And maybe even more important, who are we not studying? Now get ready for this, because this slide tells a huge story. Out of more than 500 active COVID-19 vaccine safety studies around the world, the entire WHO Africa region hosted only 23. Just 23. That's not just a gap, it's a canyon. And that's really the heart of the problem we're talking about today. And this leads us straight into our first big idea. We're dealing with a massive global data blind spot. I mean, just think about the irony here for a second. We're talking about a continent of 1.4 billion people. They receive vaccines, but the tough local safety research that should absolutely go along with them, it's almost nowhere to be found. It's this huge disconnect between taking public health action and having the actual evidence to back it up. But here's the good news. This isn't just a story about a problem. It's also a story about a solution, a really powerful one, from a team of researchers in Kenya who came up with a groundbreaking answer. See, these researchers from the Kemmery Wellcome Trust Research Program didn't just sit in some sterile, perfect lab. No, they went out into Kenya's actual national vaccination program. They tracked 2,440 real people in totally real-world conditions. This is literally science meeting the street. And they did it using what's called active vaccine safety surveillance, which is the absolute gold standard. So what does that mean? It means they didn't just sit back and wait for people to call in with problems. They were proactive. They called and followed up with every single person to find out how they were doing. It's the difference between just hoping you get data and going out there and making sure you get it. And when we say they were proactive, we mean it. Look at the method here. They got everybody enrolled, then they contacted them daily for that first critical week, then weekly for 3 straight months. They documented everything. This is serious, painstaking work, and it's just so incredibly rare to see this level of detail in this context. So you're probably wondering, after all that incredible effort, what did they actually find? Well, the results are pretty nuanced, and they kind of challenge the simple stories you hear from both sides of the vaccine debate. Okay, let's start with the number that's probably going to make you raise your eyebrows. 62% of the people in the study reported at least one side effect. Now, before anyone jumps to any conclusions, this is exactly why this research is so important. The researchers dug way deeper. So what does that 62% actually represent? Well, look on the left. The common stuff was pretty much what you'd expect. Feeling tired, headaches, just kind of feeling unwell for a day or two. But just as important, if not more important, is what they didn't find. Look on the right. 0 cases of the serious, scary stuff you read about in the headlines, like blood clots or heart inflammation. Context is everything. And what about pregnant participants? You know, the group that so often gets left out of research entirely? Well, the rate of pregnancy complications was just 2.6%. And that number is right in line with the normal background rate you'd expect to see in the general population anyway. The study found no evidence of any increased risk. But honestly, the real power of this study goes way beyond just these specific numbers. It's about who they decided to include and how they designed the study. This is about way more than just the data. I want you to look at this number, 535. That's how many pregnant women were included in this research. Now, think about this. Globally, this group was almost always left out of the initial vaccine trials, leaving them and their doctors totally in the dark, trying to make decisions in a data vacuum. And this quote just says it all. By including these 535 women, the Kenyan researchers generated safety data that literally didn't exist before, evidence that will inform decisions for pregnant women globally. This isn't just Kenyan data or African data. This is a gift to the entire world. So you can really start to see why this study is such a perfect model. It's done in the real world, not a lab. It looked at 5 different vaccine brands. It focused on a group that was mostly women, and it used that gold standard active surveillance. This is exactly how you generate evidence that people can actually trust and use in their own lives. So let's pull all this together. Let's get to the ultimate point here. This is all about closing that massive research gap we saw right at the very beginning. When you look at all the data, the methods, the context, what do you think is the single most important finding of this entire study? It might not be what you think it is. The most important finding is the fact that the study even exists. It is the definitive proof, the proof of concept, that this kind of rigorous, world-class, locally led research isn't just desperately needed in Africa, it is 100% possible. The talent, the skill, the capability, it's all there. And that leads to the big question. What do we do now? And here, researchers like Dr. Julius Kirimi-Sindi really help light the way forward. First, support African-led research with real, sustainable funding. Second, as people, we have to demand this level of transparent, tough data for all health interventions. And finally, we've got to champion the real scientific process, the one that's looking for honest answers, not just trying to confirm what we already believe. And that leaves us with one last, really critical question to chew on. This study from Kenya has shown us what is possible. So the challenge now for the global health community, for African governments, for all of us, is this. How do we make sure that the evidence that shapes Africa's health future is actually generated in Africa, by Africans, for Africans? The answer to that question will define the future of health for millions.